Good evening. My name is Helene Finger. I'm director of the Women's Engineering Program here at Cal Poly and also a faculty member in the Civil Engineering Department. I am excited to welcome you to our Women in Engineering webinar. Traditionally, we've held this event as an in-person event during part of Cal Poly's open house weekend. And so super excited to have you joining us on our first ever virtual Women in Engineering event. The way we are organized tonight is we have this set up as a webinar, so you can interact with the panelists using the Q&A option under the Zoom controls, likely at the bottom or top of your screen. And we will be using the chat function in order to share with you links to the second part of our event, which is going to be smaller discussions by major. So you'll have the opportunity to choose which of those discussions you want to enter, if you want to go to one or more than one. And in those Zoom meetings, you'll be able to talk with faculty and students and potentially some of our alumni panelists with some questions that are specific to your major. Another thing that you will have the opportunity to do is meet some of your potential freshman classmates or transfer student classmates. So encourage you to take a look at those at the end, and I'll give a little more guidance on how that's going to work. So moving on to our next slide, we're kind of doing this remotely. To kick off our event, I'm excited to have the leader of the College of Engineering, our incredible Dean, Dr. Amy Fleischer, to give a little introduction and welcome.
Thank you, Helene. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. This is an unusual way for us to be doing this. We certainly wish that we were all on campus. You can see in the background behind me, this is our Engineering Project Center building. And if you join us at Cal Poly, this will be one of the buildings where you spend a lot of wonderful hours working on all kinds of incredible projects. And I wish we could show you these spaces, but we're going to do the best that we can in this virtual environment. This is definitely an interesting time. I want to congratulate all of you on your acceptances to Cal Poly. It's a wonderful thing to celebrate. I know this is an unusual time for all of us and that it's very stressful. And I hope that you do get a chance to take a deep breath and recognize, you know, the wonderful achievements that you have had, even if we're celebrating them singly and in our own houses these days, rather than as a group and as a community. I think being a community is one of the important things about being a woman in engineering, and you'll get to hear from many of our amazing women today. And building that community is something that we take very seriously at Cal Poly. And we promote all sorts of different activities and all sorts of different experiences for our women in engineering. There's lots of ways to build community, and many of us have intersectional identities as well. So there's opportunities both in our women's engineering program that you'll hear from today, as well as in our multicultural engineering programs. Our SWE program, our SWE section, the Society of Women Engineers, I think is one of the best in the nation, and you'll get an opportunity to hear about that. Almost 1,000 members in our SWE division, and amazing, wonderful things that are going on. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to wish you the best as you're making your decisions about where you're going to attend college. And I want to turn it over to our amazing team who will walk you through what you can learn about Cal Poly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dean Fleischer. I want to echo your congratulations and help encourage you to celebrate this accomplishment that you've made. You have been admitted to, I'm sure, a number of highly selected institutions, and there's a lot for you to sort of think about. One of the things maybe you hadn't thought about is that you're part of an even more select group. You're a woman in engineering. And that is something I wanted to talk just a little bit about before we move into our panel discussion. So the first graph I wanted to show you, if we can get to that next, there we go, is the one of the things is that in engineering, there's a lot of variation in the percentage of women studying in a particular program. The green line on this graph shows the percent of women in our current freshman class by major. And it's organized from left to right with the highest percentages on the left side. So you can see that environmental and biomedical both have over 50% of their freshman class are women. And this goes down as you move to the right on that graph. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that the size of the programs also vary significantly, with our largest programs being mechanical, electrical, and civil. One last thing to point out is that Cal Poly's percent women is actually higher than the national average. And along those lines, I'm not only proud to say our students are really exceptional that come to Cal Poly, and our women students even more so. And they graduate at a rate higher than the national average for women and higher than actually the average of their male classmates. So just some things to consider, but not hopefully add to any of the stress you have about considering where you're going and what you're going to study in the years coming up. So moving on to our next slide, I would like to talk a little bit about the Women's Engineering Program. We're here to support you with a variety of programs to help you in making your way not only through your program, but on into your career. Our goal is to help each of you to graduate and be connected with a career that is a really good fit for you. And we offer a variety of programs. I saw that one of our first questions was, what is it that you offer? And so I'm super excited to introduce the current president of Cal Poly SWE, who's also an aerospace engineering undergraduate student, Valerie Kettering, to tell us a little bit about Cal Poly SWE.
Well, thank you so much, Helene. Like Helene said, my name's Valerie. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the president of Cal Poly SWE. If you'll go on to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what SWE is. So Society of Women Engineers is an international organization, and here at Cal Poly SWE, we're a collegiate section of that national organization. So we're just one small piece of the bigger puzzle. But what we do at Cal Poly SWE is we try to connect our members to industry. We want to make sure that everyone has those professional development resources so they can get internships and jobs and really thrive in the workforce. We want to connect them to the community. So it's really important that we're giving back and being mentors to the next generation of engineers. And so we love to do community service and do community outreach to the Central Coast of California, but also other states. And then we want to connect everyone with each other because community is really important. And I'm sure you'll hear a lot about that today, but we want to make sure that people can have mentors in our program. We want to make sure that they can build those friendships because college is supposed to be fun as well as a great place to learn and grow. And we want to make sure that SWE can positively contribute to that. So if you go to the next slide, I want to kind of encapsulate all of that in our mission statement, which is the Society of Women Engineers of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo strives to provide a voice for women that will encourage them to achieve their full potential as engineers and as leaders. It is our mission to create engineering opportunities, provide career and scholastic resources, and demonstrate the value of teamwork to all students at this university and of the community. So that's a really wonderful way of summing up all that we hope to do, but it doesn't sum up everything that we'd like to do. So I want to move on to the next slide and discuss our diversity statement. You'll notice a lot of clubs on campus are starting to adopt diversity statements as a way to be really vocal about how we support diversity at this university. And a lot of us have different identities. We want to make sure that Cal Poly SWE is a place for people of any identity to find community and to have resources, and that includes allies. So whether that's our male allies in our classes who want to help us succeed, whether that's professors or faculty or folks in industry, we really want to make sure Cal Poly SWE is a place that everyone can kind of come collectively and discuss gender imbalances in engineering in ways that we can constructively change that in the future. Next slide, please. So a couple of numbers. So nationally, the Society of Women Engineers has 37,000 members in 100 professional sections and over 300 collegiate sections. So we're really big, and it's really cool to be part of such a big community throughout the world. But Cal Poly SWE is one of the most recognized sections in the nation, which is really exciting. And I get to do a little bit of bragging because I'm really proud of our collegiate section. So we have about 1,000 members, and we have 90+ events throughout the year in outreach, professional development, social events. So there's a ton of ways to get involved if you're interested. We award over $32,000 a year in scholarships to our members, making sure people have the financial support that they need. And this last year, we won 5 national awards, including 3rd place for our Team Tech team, which is a year-long interdisciplinary hands-on engineering project that we present at national conference every year. Next slide. So if you want to get involved when you come to Cal Poly, and we hope you come to Cal Poly, there's a couple ways to get involved. This summer, you'll receive an email for our Big Little Mentorship program. So you'll be paired with an upperclassman in your major, and they'll be able to answer any of your questions about coming to college, helping you get settled. It's a really great way to know someone when you come into the Cal Poly community. We'll also have a first general meeting, whether that's virtual or in person will kind of play out as it will. But this is a great time to learn more about Cal Poly SWE. We have a special discounted price for first-year freshmen and first-year transfers who are coming into Cal Poly, where it's $30 for your entire college career plus a year in industry. So it's 5 years for a one-time payment of $30, which is probably one of the least expensive clubs I've ever seen on Cal Poly's campus. It's a really good deal. And if you can't wait to get involved, if you'll go to the next slide, we have ways that you can get involved right now. So virtual SWE Welcome is happening this Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's a great way to learn more about SWE. I'm kind of going through it quickly, but we'll spend a little bit more time talking about Cal Poly SWE, Cal Poly as a college, as well as tools that will help you succeed. And then if you have questions just as a prospective student about Cal Poly, we can help you by matching you with a current student in your major to answer those questions to help you make an educated decision. So if you're interested in any of these things, be sure to visit our website, calpolyswe.com. All the information is there. And if you go to the next slide, we have ways that you can also follow us on social media. So we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. We're very active on social media, and this is a great way to be keyed into everything that we're doing. See if you're interested in joining our club or learning more about Cal Poly, and there are a lot of resources you'll find. So thank you so much for letting me talk for a little bit, and I'll hand it back over.
All right, thank you so much, Valerie. Before we move on to the panelists, I wanted to talk a little bit about cost of attendance. This is an area that we tend to get a lot of questions around. So we put together this graphic to provide some information about how much it does cost to attend Cal Poly. And the far right column are the totals. And the one thing students are often surprised to learn is that Cal Poly is substantially cheaper than attending a UC school. In fact, it's about $12,000 per year less, both for in-state students and out-of-state students. Another thing I did want to mention around cost of attendance is to encourage all of you to log into your portal and take a look at financial aid. That should all have posted. If there's any questions about any of that, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you kind of figure that part out. The WEP website is just wep.calpoly.edu. So that's a super easy way to get in connection with us. So moving on to the main part of our event, I'm excited to have 6 amazing panelists here, 3 alumni and 3 students. The way this part of the event is going to be organized is first each of the panelists will introduce themselves, and then we'll move into a series of pre-established questions that they will provide some insights on, and continue to post your questions to the Q&A, because then we will pull those up and start answering those questions as time allows. So without further ado, we'll go on to the next slide and begin with our first panelist's introduction. So that is Tracy.
Sorry, my mute was being a little bit sticky there, but hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah.
So hi, my name is Tracy Van Houten, and I am an alum of Cal Poly. I went to Cal Poly from 2000 to 2004 and got my bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering with a concentration in astronautics. I went from there straight to NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. That was my dream job growing up from the time I was 15 until I actually started working there right out of Cal Poly. And I've done several things. I'm currently on the Europa Clipper mission. Europa is a moon of Jupiter, and we'll be launching that mission in 2024. But prior to this, I've been on several Mars projects. So I actually spent a little more than half my career sending rovers to Mars. So I've worked on both the Perseverance rover that we're about to launch this summer, and then spent several years on the Curiosity rover that is still roving around Mars, even though we launched it in 2011. And then another part of my job at JPL is that I am the university recruiting manager from JPL to Cal Poly. So I'm actually at Cal Poly about 5 times a year, usually in person, to interact with the students and set up relationships that allow us to hire in a lot of interns and eventually full-time hires as well. So I've done a lot of hiring of Cal Poly students in my time at JPL. And then SWE was a really huge part of my Cal Poly experience. I was in Valerie's job, well, 2002, so a long time ago, and found SWE to be just an amazing way to be supported as a woman in engineering, that it set a really strong foundation. And so early on, I decided I wanted SWE to be a part of my life, and I am a life member of the organization, as well as winning some awards from the national level of SWE. And then I have a separate side of my life. Well, I'm a mom, have a couple of kids, and I also am very involved in politics because I think engineers fundamentally, we're here to solve problems, and right now there's a lot of problems that need solving. So I sit on California State Commission of the Oil Spill Technical Advisory Committee. I ran for Congress a few years ago, so I'm very involved in the political sphere as well, because I think it's important, vitally important, for people with strategic thinking and problem solving abilities to be part of our governance. So I'll leave it at that and move on to the next.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Mora. I graduated from Cal Poly with a mechanical engineering degree in 2013. After graduation, I moved to the Bay Area, where I started working for a semiconductor company called Lam Research. I spent 6 years at Lam Research, basically designing multi-million-dollar machines that took in bare silicon and turned it into computer chips. So basically, any tablet or phone you've ever touched has gone through a Lam Research machine at some point or another during its lifetime. After that, I found myself on my current job. So I'm currently at a startup within the autonomous vehicle industry, and the company's name is Zoox. I'm part of the Sense and Compute team there. So specifically what my role is I own the mechanical packaging for all of the cameras on the autonomous vehicle. And my involvement, even though I left Cal Poly a couple years ago, I can't get enough of the community and love to stay involved. When I was a student, I was part of the student government there at Cal Poly, as well as other numerous clubs. And today I give back to the Cal Poly community by serving on 2 boards. I sit on the Mechanical Engineering Industry Advisory Board as the vice chair, and I also sit on the President's Advisory Council for the president of Cal Poly.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Chagas Clark. Soy de Mexico, grew up in a small little town in the mountains of Durango. The town was not connected to the electrical grid, which inspired me to get a degree in electrical engineering with the hopes of coming back and bringing the power lines to the town. They now have electricity. I received a degree in electrical engineering in 2011, and today I am the asset management and reliability lead at Facebook, responsible for the reliability of Facebook data centers across the globe. We're growing rapidly, so reliability is an important part of our infrastructure. I held positions at Chevron and PG&E prior to my role at Facebook, and both in design, operations, and maintenance, and pretty much set the way for me to be a reliability expert in the field of electrical engineering. And then pretty much for my involvement at Cal Poly, I did a lot of club involvements. I ended up being the Electrical and Computer Engineering Honor Society president. I was involved in the Power Engineering Society in the electrical engineering realm, and I had a lot of involvement with industry, bringing them back to Cal Poly and showing us students really cool ways that we can apply our degree in. Excited to be here. Looking forward to just providing you some reassurance that you'll be in great hands at Cal Poly.
All right, hello again, everyone. Fourth year aerospace engineer, concentrating in aeronautical engineering. That's the airplane side for anyone who's not familiar. I'm the president of Cal Poly SWE, as I mentioned before. I also sit on the leadership coaching committee for National SWE, so I'm training to be able to help collegiate sections in other universities once I graduate, kind of develop their SWE sections. I'm also the aerospace department rep for engineering ambassadors. So for any of you who've been on campus before, the folks in the red polos that give you tours of the College of Engineering, I'm one of those people. And I also help plan EPIC, which is Engineering Possibilities in College Summer Camp. It's a camp I attended when I was in high school, kind of inspired me to come to Cal Poly and go into engineering. And so I'm really excited to give back and be able to plan the camp now. I've interned twice at Boeing for 2 summers. And after graduation, I'm going to be working at Edwards Air Force Base as a flight test engineer.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Leal. I am a 3rd year civil engineering student. Also really excited to be here to share with you a little bit about my experience with Cal Poly. Some things that I'm really proud of for Cal Poly is just having so many clubs. There's the Engineers Without Borders Club, which I have the opportunity of being one of the project managers for. We're currently working on a water distribution system for a community in Nicaragua that currently doesn't have access to clean water. And there's so many other projects within that club as well. I currently sit in the Dean of Students Student Advisory Council, where we bring just to the table some of the issues that the campus faces, and just to make sure that we're addressing those in the best way possible. I'm also part of the EWB Diversity and Inclusion Committee. As you'll see, most of my involvement is with the Engineers Without Borders Club. That's why I chose my major, civil engineering, because I always just thought of, building homes. I think just growing up, seeing like homelessness, you begin to, imagine all the things that you can do with your career. And so that's something that I've tried to carry over to my career here at Cal Poly. I'm also very involved with the Dream Center on campus. That's a resource center for our undocumented students. And there's a lot of services that are offered there that I help just promote and bring more awareness of on campus. Other than that, I'm a student researcher. I'm currently conducting research on automation and construction. So I'm more interested in the construction side of civil engineering. I'm currently working on how to use drones to make transportation engineering safer and more efficient. And it's really awesome. If you have any questions about CE, I'll stick around for the breakout rooms for the majors. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Banzon, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm a 4th year software engineering major, which is kind of like computer science. We'll explain that a little bit more, but software engineering is basically the human-focused side of computer science. For clubs I'm involved in, I'm the diversity director for the Women Involved in Software and Hardware Club, which we call WISH. That's really similar to SWE, except we focus specifically on the computing majors. So software engineering, computer science, computer engineering, and electrical engineering. In the past, I've also been an organizer for Camp Polyhacks, which is a local hackathon, and I've worked as an orientation leader for the summer program called Slow Days and the fall welcome program called Week of Welcome, or WOW. Last summer, I was an intern at Apple, and I worked on the iOS system experience team, which is the team that codes like the app switcher, notification center, home screen, all of that kind of stuff. So I got to focus on UI and UX. I also work part-time at Cal Poly at the Digital Transformation Hub, or the DX Hub, which is a collaboration with Amazon's AWS, and we work on consulting for the civic sector. So we'll help out cities with like using VR to combat graffiti, or using VR to identify evidence at crime scenes and that kind of thing. And then after graduation, I'll be returning to Apple, where I'll be a virtual reality and augmented reality engineer. So I'm really excited to be here and answer all your questions.
Awesome. Nice to hear a little bit more about you. A lot of you I know fairly well, but I always learn something new when people introduce themselves. Super excited to have you all here. And I've been taking a look at some of the questions that have come up, and we'll try to work those into the answers as we go along, and then bring up whatever ones didn't fit in at the end. One of the ones I did want to mention is that we are recording this session, and we will be posting a link to that on the WEP website. So you'll be able to go back and kind of take a look and get the information. So with that, we'll go on to our first question, which I will ask Sylvia to start us off with an answer.
Sure. So the question is, how has your Cal Poly education benefited you? You'll hear a lot throughout the Cal Poly events about our motto, which is learn by doing. And I just want to emphasize it's not a motto, it's a lifestyle that I've carried over with me and used in my career post-graduation. At Cal Poly, all the hands-on experiences that you will be exposed to will cultivate an environment where you will both be challenged, and you will find out that most likely your first attempt at solving a problem won't be the successful attempt. So in that sense, Cal Poly will provide a space where it's safe for you to try new things, to fail, and to fail often, and to grow as a student and not be afraid of taking on new challenges. That protective space to fail and to do it often with the support of that Cal Poly staff and professors is what allowed me to grow as a student. And now getting rid of that fear of trying new things has allowed me to really excel in my career. Most notably, I switched industries, which is a really difficult thing to do. I spent 6 years in semiconductor, and now I'm in autonomous vehicles. Before this, I knew nothing about autonomous vehicles, but I'm taking that Cal Poly motto of learn by doing and carrying it on with me on my next adventure.
Awesome. So does anybody want to add to that first question?
I would love to add to that. I'll just piggyback on what Sylvia said about the learn by doing approach. It really works. And when I first started working at JPL, I was hired in as a deputy systems engineer. And the reason was that one of my first, or the person I was interviewing with, who ended up eventually hiring me, he looked at my resume, he was very impressed by it, but he said, well, not sure, we only hire from the MITs and Caltechs of the world, so I'm not sure that with your Cal Poly education that you're really going to be able to hack it here straight out of your bachelor's degree. And I told him at the time, I said, well, I'd really love the opportunity to prove you wrong. So I was hired in as a deputy systems engineer. I was hired in at the same time as about 15 other people, most of them with master's degrees, all from those other schools that were their preferred choice schools. And within the first few weeks, I was told it was going to take me 6 months to a year to be able to, graduate to be a systems engineer, drop that deputy label. And within about 2 weeks, there was an opportunity that came up, and, they said, like, who's going to take this task? And I said, oh, I'll do it. And it ended up snowballing so that I was quickly made into a systems engineer within a matter of weeks of showing up, and then was leading the team within a year of being there. And all those people that I was leading had a lot more years of education and experience, but I really knew how to get tasks done, how to take an open-ended problem and problem solve from the beginning. And I think that that's something that you can only really get from cross-disciplinary, project-based learning when you're really thrown into the fire and you have to swim. And that experience was invaluable, and it's helped me my entire career.
Fantastic, thanks. Anybody else want to contribute a response to this first question?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So one of Cal Poly's other mottos, in addition to learn by doing, is ready day one, which is about being ready the first day that you get into industry. And in the computing majors, you really see how that manifests. So we have to do a lot of group projects together. So a lot of times people think of coding as a very solitary exercise, but at Cal Poly, it's not. You have to work on a lot of group projects, which is very similar in industry. You will be working in a department with a team. So we make sure that we replicate that here. And a lot of the computing majors also have some kind of capstone. So as a software engineering major, we have a year-long senior capstone where we work on a single project the whole time. You have a team that you work with, but it's not just a project that you make up and you run with. We actually bring in external customers and we meet with them every 2 weeks, and you get to learn about Agile, which is a management technique, and you build the software with those customers and you have regular meetings with them. And the teacher doesn't even facilitate it. You own those meetings and you own that whole project that you built, which is really special because then when you get into industry, you already know how to work with customers and work with a team. And that seems really unique to Cal Poly.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. So we'll move on to our next question, which I'll ask you to continue on, which is how and why did you choose your major at Cal Poly?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. I'm a software engineering major, and Cal Poly is one of the few schools that offers software engineering at a bachelor's level. So most of the time you have to take computer science, but at Cal Poly, we have both the computer science major and the software engineering major, which spins that computer science major to be a little bit more customer focused, people focused, psychology. So when I was researching schools, I really liked that software engineering major, and I had the opportunity to visit Cal Poly and meet with a department head who explained that to me, and I was really excited about that. But my mom also sat me down and was like, okay, let's look at your curriculum sheets and your flow chart. And we went class by class through everything I would have to take at Cal Poly, and we compared that to other universities, because most of the time computer science is taught from like a theoretical approach or a hands-on approach. So we went through the classes to see how that would really look and how it would be taught from school to school.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add on to this discussion?
I'd like to chime in. So I chose aerospace engineering because for as long as I can remember, I've always loved going on airplanes and flying. And I thought that this was like a normal thing because my dad's also an aerospace engineer. And I was like, maybe this is just how everyone is. Like everyone gets excited about airplanes. That must just be the way the world is. And I just went to a summer camp, which is a summer camp I now plan. And I did some aerospace engineering activities and completely fell in love with it and fell in love with the campus at Cal Poly. And the reason I share that story is because I think passion is something that you can't replace. And if you have the passion for something, it'll get you through all of the roadblocks, all of those tough classes, because you'll have classes, if you come to Cal Poly or go somewhere else, that aren't your most favorite classes in the world. But that passion is the thing that's going to really help you get through those things and what's going to inspire other people around you and open up those doors. So I think that just like my passion for aircraft has kind of pushed me through my Cal Poly degree, and I still love aerospace and would recommend it to anyone who's considering it.
Thank you, Valerie. Moving on to our next question, and this one actually aligns with one of the questions we had come up in our Q&A that said they're considering pursuing a degree at a UC or Cal Poly. Would you give me a comparison in terms of internships and career opportunities, student resources, and class size? So I think that really fits into what advice would you give to high school students when they're deciding what to study and where. And I think what I would also include is the what to study. For a lot of our students, they may not have been like Valerie and known what they wanted. A lot of our students are, well, I picked this, but I just learned what engineering is, let alone a specific discipline. So I will turn this one over to Tracy.
Yeah, so I think, it can be really tough making this decision. It is a big decision, and it does really impact, not just the next 4 or 5 years of your life, but it can, impact your entire career trajectory, which is a scary thing to be, kind of contemplating at 17, 18 years old. So I certainly appreciate that you're all, making a big life choice. Maybe this is one of your first big life choices that you're getting to make. And it is really important, I think, to kind of put aside some of the tangibles and think about some of the intangibles. And so for me, that is, I would want you to think about what qualities are you looking for when you visualize yourself at a school in terms of location and community, campus culture, things like that. And then the next big category would be, what's your learning style? How do you do well? Do you do better? More theoretical, more project-based, more hands-on? And then also the biggest thing for me is if you choose engineering or any STEM field, or there are a lot of challenging majors, you really need to have a support system. So what are the qualities of that support system that you want to be wrapped up and embraced in when you set foot on campus? I think it's really important, and that support system can be something that sustains you throughout your career and your whole life. I know I have a lot of the friends now that I made as a Cal Poly woman engineer in SWE that are still the people I call when I need advice. So to get to some of Helene's specific questions from the question that was asked, I will say, so class size, that is a big one, and that goes back to that question of, what are the qualities that you want to experience in terms of what is your learning style and how do you like to learn? At Cal Poly, everything is very focused on the undergrad, which is a different experience than you get at a lot of schools. So at a lot of schools where you may be in a lecture hall with several hundred students, that is a much more unique experience than you would get at Cal Poly, which is very focused on the undergrad experience, small class sizes in general, a lot of one-on-one attention from professors, because the professors who are at Cal Poly and the lecturers are there because they care about teaching the undergrad experience, and I think more so than their own graduate level or PhD sorts of research. So that was one of them. What was the other part of that question, Helene?
I just missed the question. Let me look real quick.
I'm sorry.
A comparison in terms of internships, career opportunities, student resources, and class size.
Sure. So I will say, so I've been a recruiter for a really long time, and I have recruited from a lot of different schools. The reason that I keep coming back to Cal Poly, which is not the only school I went to, I also got a master's degree in there somewhere. The reason I keep coming back to Cal Poly is that the students really are, like Kelly said, ready from day one. And so I think industry as a whole has an extremely strong relationship with Cal Poly. That is seen through, we have industry advisory boards. I'm a member of the Women's Engineering Program Industry Advisory Board, but every single major has one of those boards. And those representatives from industry all come to Cal Poly because we know that the interns are ready to work, are ready to perform at a level that is actually useful to us in the summer, and likewise for full-time positions coming out. And then the last thing I think was the professor question, and I think I already touched on that one a bit. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Tracy. Does anybody else want to add anything to this topic?
I want to add something to my own response. Can I add, sorry, Sylvia, can I add just really quickly? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to say quickly that you don't have to know what you want to do from day one. That is absolutely okay. And both Valerie and I are folks who, were very passionate from early on and knew exactly what we wanted to do and just wanted to get in there, knock it out, and, get on to our careers. But it gets asked a lot about changing majors. You can absolutely change majors. That is definitely something that can happen. It's not expected that you're going to know exactly what you want to do. You can change within engineering. You can change across different disciplines. You can change schools, right? So no matter where you decide to go, though it is a big decision, it's not a final decision. And you can, as you learn more about yourself and all of those things I mentioned earlier about the qualities that you like for your learning style, you can adapt and you can modify that track if you need to. Sorry, Sylvia, go ahead.
No worries. Echoing kind of what you're saying, I started at Cal Poly as a general engineering major and switched over to mechanical engineering. And I think I'm at liberty to say that most of the department chairs are very open to talking with students and formulating a plan if changing major is something that you're interested in. And it's a very supportive system. So it's hard to pick at 17 or 18 years old what you want to study, for the next 4 years. And if you get it wrong, just know that there's a support system to help you get on the right path. There was a question regarding, do you start your engineering classes day one in your freshman year? And Tracy, you were talking a little bit about that. That's why I wanted to bring it up. We talk about ready day one, and Cal Poly is differentiating itself from other state universities and UCs in that day one, you start with mechanical engineering classes if you're a mechanical engineering major. And that's what makes it so exciting, is the learn by doing starts in your major from day one.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, and to add to how to decide what to study, it's very intimidating, right? When you're a senior in high school and you're trying to decide what am I going to be for the rest of my life. It's a very hard question to answer. What I recommend is thinking within yourself and asking yourself, what problem do I want to solve? Because that will allow you to dictate like what major will allow you to solve that problem. And there are so many problems to solve in the world. It's one that you're passionate about, because passion is what really gets you through classes that you might not like, the difficulties that you might experience from really difficult classes, just the college experience as well, being away from the comfort of your home and your parents. So that's really what drives you to complete a rigorous major. So I would really ask, like, what problem do I want to solve? For me, it was, I lived in a town where there was no electricity, and I really wanted to bring that back to my family and my neighbors where I grew up. So I pursued electrical engineering, what allowed me to concentrate in power engineering. But that's what I recommend. Ask, what problem do I want to solve? And then research a lot of what major will get you there.
Really good advice. Thank you for all of that information from everyone. Moving on to our next question. There was some questions that have come through the Q&A, so panelists have access to look at those questions as they're coming up as well. But there was a question about how common is it for Cal Poly students to get internships. So I'll let Valerie talk about this question, since she's a current student, and that specific question as well.
Absolutely. So internships are a huge part of the Cal Poly experience. They're part of the engineering experience at most universities. And I was fortunate enough my second year to go to a SWE conference actually and get an internship with Boeing, which, growing up loving flying on planes, a lot of those being Boeing airplanes, that was my dream internship. I was told by many companies that no one's going to hire you if you're a sophomore, you have to be a junior. That is not true, especially with a Cal Poly degree. It opens up so many doors, and you just have to be really persistent and know what you want and go for it. But Cal Poly opens those doors for you every quarter. They have huge career fairs full of companies who cannot wait to hire Cal Poly grads. And if they see that you're passionate and you're interested and you're engaged on campus, it is very hard to leave Cal Poly without at least one fantastic internship experience. So after getting that first internship, a lot of companies will invite you back. I was invited back. And totally thought that I had it figured out. I was like, oh, well, I'm obviously going to work for Boeing after I graduate. Easy, done. You all may have heard there was an issue with the plane. Didn't go super well. Boeing, not necessarily a place that's hiring a ton right now. So I had to kind of rethink my whole plan. And I had a little bit of a crisis, like, what do I do? I'm going to, where am I going to go? And of course, Cal Poly totally had my back, because I went to a senior design trip, design review, which is something that the aerospace engineering department does at least once a quarter for all their senior students. You go to a company and you present your project and they give you feedback. And I went to Edwards Air Force Base, going to present my senior project like you do. And I presented, and after I was done, I had a recruiter come up to me and say, we really want to interview you on site in a month. Are you willing to come back? And so I did, and ended up getting my job offer from a Cal Poly sanctioned design trip, which is not something I ever sought out. But I think that just shows how many doors Cal Poly opens for you, whether you know you're walking through them or not. If I hadn't got my Cal Poly degree, I never would have gotten my full-time position the way I did. And I think that there's just so many opportunities to do that. Starting from when you're a freshman or sophomore, if you're persistent and dedicated, that's definitely an option, up until you graduate. And whether you go on to work full-time or go to a graduate degree, there's just so many opportunities there. Did I touch on most of the questions in the chat? Is there anything else?
I think you did. Nice job, Valerie. Does anybody else want to add about internships and that topic?
I'll say something. So I think Cal Poly sets it up so that there are so many opportunities, but something that you have to find within yourself. It's just the ability to advocate for yourself and to really be proud of your accomplishments and sell that. You know, I feel like sometimes, whether it's because it is a male-dominated field, we can either settle for a smaller paycheck or just not be as persistent about, oh, these are my qualifications, I am capable of this. And so that's something that you really have to just, you know, like learn to do. And it is a process and just putting yourself out there. So that's how you're going to take advantage of those opportunities.
Fantastic. One of the things that made me think about, sort of tied to one of the questions that we had, which was, do you feel out of place in Cal Poly Engineering as an ethnic or gender minority? And I think, you know, in industry, you do have to feel comfortable putting yourself out. And so maybe I saw Jessica had her mute turned off, so I'll let her jump in and answer that.
Yeah, that is something that I was afraid of as well, especially my parents. They were very afraid of if there were people like me at Cal Poly, and Cal Poly did such a great job of reaching out and providing resources of groups that I'll find people like me. So I actually had the opportunity to attend a summer program before going into my freshman year at Cal Poly, where it paired me with other minority students, and then we got to take a psychology class for 3 weeks and get that out of the way to get acquainted with like the college environment and experience and being away from home. And that was just, I am just so grateful for that experience because it allowed me to transition smoothly into the college experience, where I know I would have been very scared the first day if I didn't have that. So I found community even before it was my first day at Cal Poly. So I can't speak enough of how many resources and clubs and activities there are of all sorts. And it's not just minority based.
Thank you. Kelly, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so just to tack on to that, I think in general, it's really a lot of the engineering majors are very male dominated, but I think that I've never felt like left out or sidelined because of that, because we have organizations like SWE that Valerie talked about that's enormous, or we have the club that I'm part of, WISH, that's the same thing but focused on computing majors, and there's organizations like that everywhere. So like Jessica said, there's a lot of clubs that are not just for minorities that might be like general interest, but there's a lot of clubs that are out there supporting minorities. So even if, say, maybe you're in a class and there's not as many women there, then maybe you have a meeting right after where you get to go hang out with dozens of women who are in the same major as you. And so we really build those support networks to lift one another up and encourage each other. So I personally have never felt like I was out of place or uncomfortable, because I always knew where to go if I was having trouble with something, and those people have always been there for me. And I think that's something that's really special at Cal Poly.
Really, really good advice. And I think a lot of it does come to, there is community here and you need to look for that community. It sort of segues into our next question, which is about extracurricular activities that you've been involved with. And so, Andrea, if you could start us off on that discussion.
Yeah, and I love this question because there's just so much to do at Cal Poly. During my time, I've had the opportunity to be a part of clubs like SHEP, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and also MECHA, Engineers Without Borders, and the Institution of Transportation Engineers. But I've only really stuck around with EWB and SHEP. But there's so much more to it than just clubs. If you're interested in music, you can audition for one of Cal Poly's music ensembles, regardless of your major. I know I have a couple of friends who perform in those. And then if you're interested in sports, you can also join intramural sports with a club or with a group of friends without that commitment of being a student athlete. There's arts and crafts, there's faith-based organizations, and there's exercise classes at the recreation center, and so much more if you really look into it. There's chocolate making classes, bowling classes, and you're gonna come to find that there's a lot for you to do, but only so much time. And I think something that frustrated me for a long time was just not having enough time to explore more and join more things. But regardless, once you find your schedule, I really encourage you all to join those extracurriculars and to find that balance while you're in school. And that's how you're going to find that community of students who have similar interests as you, and that network of people who are going to support you in the long run. And that's how, if you're coming in and you're feeling alone, that's how you're going to feel supported, and that's how you're going to go farther in Cal Poly. But there's just so much to do. I just really encourage you to not just study and go back to your dorm. I really encourage you to put yourself out there. I know it's scary. I'm an introvert, but that's how you're gonna make it. Yeah.
Good advice. Good advice. Does anybody want to add to this topic?
I do. I think some of the best advice I received as a freshman going into Cal Poly was to try a lot of clubs and then kind of focus in on clubs that you're really passionate about. I think Andrea touched on that a little bit. And so there are going to be hundreds, like literally hundreds of things that you can do with your time when you come to school. And I think that exploring those options is really important, but you don't get as much out of an extracurricular unless you put some of yourself into that extracurricular. And so I highly encourage you all, when you come to Cal Poly, to find a few clubs that you're really passionate about and spend your time there. Clubs are a huge part of the Cal Poly experience, and they open up so many doors for you. And so academics are super important, and I'm sure all of you are very academically talented, but know that club time is also valuable time, and you're not just wasting it. It's going to really benefit you, and you will get internships and jobs because of your club experience. That's how important it is. So be involved. It really pays off. And I've noticed my peers who haven't been as involved in extracurriculars have struggled a lot more getting internships, getting opportunities, regardless of how academically talented they are, versus my friends who are super involved and have lower GPAs, or their doors are open so many more times. So definitely join extracurriculars, whichever college you go to.
And I'd like to add on from a recruiting perspective that one of the things that I find phenomenal about Cal Poly's extracurricular activities is the amount that they are led by student leaders. You know, the student leadership of these clubs, something like SWE with 1,000 members. I mean, heck, Valerie, when I was there, I only had 524, I think. So you got me beat by double. You know, running an organization that large as a student while you're doing all of your schoolwork as well is a huge responsibility, and the quality of leaders that are made out of these extracurriculars is a huge deal, and it is absolutely something we look for as recruiters. Now putting on my other hat, I will say one of my biggest mistakes in my life was going to Cal Poly and hearing that, oh, you can never make it through in 4 years, nobody does that. And I said, watch me. And so I rushed through my Cal Poly career, and now parents, cover your ears if you are listening. Students, you know, take your time while you're there. There's a lot to experience. There's a lot to do, and you'll never have an opportunity like this again to really explore and take part in a lot of different aspects of your life and build, you know, unique skill sets. In addition to that, I'll just say, I saw one of the questions about residence halls, living in the residence halls. One of the extracurricular activities that I did was I was a resident advisor. I was also in the wind ensemble, so music was mentioned as well. I did that all 4 years at Cal Poly. But absolutely, if you do have the opportunity to live in the engineering dorms, it is something I would absolutely recommend doing. When I was an RA, it was for the engineering dorm. You will not get that kind of support system that you need. You know, you can build it for yourself outside of the engineering dorm, but it's already kind of built in if everybody in your residence hall is taking the same engineering classes that you are. We had lots of study halls and special activities just for the engineering students. So definitely, if you are interested in living with other engineers, I recommend it. It makes it a lot easier to get through those first couple of years of classes.
Again, really good advice. Moving on to our last question. What makes Cal Poly special to you? So Jessica.
Yes. So college is where I grew up, really, and I started thinking about like what I hold the dearest about Cal Poly, and it's really the community that I was able to build while I was there. Like the first 3 weeks of my college experience, those are like the same group of friends that we went to each other's weddings, we're there for each other's baby showers. And I would never have imagined that I would find that community just being 17 when I started at Cal Poly. And I'm just so blessed and honored to have had that experience, and then combine that with being in such a beautiful area. San Obispo is tops down like one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived in. So combine the beautiful area of the community and the quality of education that I received that really set the foundation for me to have a great career. And it's just not my technical skills that I earned there, is also the soft skills that I was able to get from being in project, working cross-functionally, leading clubs, building relationships with professional relationships with my professors. Like combining all that has really enhanced the quality of life that I was really hoping to achieve. So I really hold it dear to my heart. I met my husband there. That's even a big plus. So it just has so much meaning to my heart. And every time I go there, I always get those butterflies. I just love Cal Poly.
Nice. Does anybody else want to add to this topic?
I think there's something magical about campus and the community on campus. Like regardless of what your major is, people are so wonderful and nice. And I remember when I visited campus for the first time, I thought I was underwhelmed. I was like, I'm just really comfortable here. And I thought that I like needed to be wowed or something, which there are very many places on campus where you can be wowed on campus. But I think overall, Cal Poly is a community where you're going to feel really comfortable. And the surrounding SLO community is also a place that's super safe and welcoming, and it's a beautiful college town. And so I know that not everyone has gotten the chance to visit, most likely, but Cal Poly as a university is just this beautiful sanctuary in the middle of California where you can drive 15 minutes and get to the beach and hike the hills that are literally on campus. And it's an incredible place to go to college. So
I will echo that, and it is unfortunate that we're not able to host you in person, but we hope to do that sometime in the near future. I would like to now move on to taking a look at a little bit of these questions before we go on to the wrap up. And one of the questions was around transfer students. I'm not sure if any of the panelists were transfer students, but maybe Valerie could talk a little bit about the SWE programming that is offered for transfer students.
Yeah, so SWE has transfer student programming. We do a lot of community college outreach. That's an area we're definitely trying to grow. So as a freshman and a first-year transfer student, we have specialized officer positions geared towards first-year transfers so they can kind of share their experiences and help build a community within Cal Poly SWE. And from all of my experience with the aerospace transfer students, they are as successful, if not a lot more successful than some of my freshman peers, and they have absolutely no problem getting internships. I saw that was a question. I have seen so many transfer students get like 6-month, very coveted co-ops at places like SpaceX and Apple, and they do very, very well. So I want to dispel any myth that like transfer students are at a disadvantage. If anything, I see them at an advantage to take advantage of the college experience because they tend to have more experience in college and are more prepared. And there's a lot of support systems. So whether that's SWE or there's new student transition programs, there's a transfer student center on campus, there's a lot of resources for transfer students, but I would not worry that you're going to be less successful because every transfer I've met on campus has been a rock star and they have done exponentially well. So don't stress about that. You're going to do great.
And I'll just say ditto, and I love hiring transfer students, so no worries there.
Fantastic. One thing, there was a lot of questions I've seen coming up on there, and so I'll just take them from my standpoint, and that was about changing majors. Over 30% of our graduates have changed their major at least one time, and Cal Poly is very transparent in how that process works. If you want to know what it is, you could just Google Cal Poly engineering change of major, and it's really quite easy to do. I saw some questions about what about this major being harder to transfer into a next major. If you made it into the College of Engineering, we want you to be in the major that you want to be in. So you will not be excluded from going into a different major because you picked wrong when you were 17 years old. So I just wanted to throw that out in regards to change of major. I'm trying to see if there was, did panelists see any questions they felt compelled to answer on the Q&A?
I saw a lot of questions about graduating in 4 years. I don't know if Tracy, those are the questions you were going to address as well.
I'm actually typing a response to that one right now.
Then I'm just going to let that one go. But
well, so Valerie,
I can say it really quick if you want me to just say what I was typing in, but
that would be great.
Sure. So it was difficult for me to get through in 4 years. It meant taking between 18 and 21 units every quarter I was at Cal Poly because I was also doing music. So that was a given 1 to 2 units a quarter. So I did have to actually get special permission to take that many units for each quarter. I also came in with a lot of AP credit. So I got to skip my entire freshman year's worth of math classes. I got to skip a lot of the science classes because I had AP credits. So it was difficult to do in 4 years, but it was totally doable. I mean, I obviously said, if you can swing it, stay for longer because there's so much to do and to learn. But I understand that financially that can be very difficult. And, you know, sometimes you just need to get out and start working. But the other thing I'll say is since the time I've been in school, the departments have done a lot to make sure that their majors are doable in 4 years. And so a lot of the curriculum has been streamlined. In my role in the industry advisory board and other roles with the college, you know, I've definitely seen the departments take an active role in really making their curriculum efficient so that students can absolutely get through in 4 years, and they build out a schedule for you so that as long as you stay on that track, then you'll be okay, and you are guaranteed to get some of those classes if you stay on the planned curriculum that the major gives you so that you can get out in those 4 years.
I want to share a slightly different perspective. So I came in as a freshman. I took some AP classes. Half of them didn't transfer. That was a bummer. I did most of my classes at Cal Poly, and I was able to take under 16 units for every single quarter except for one. And I have extra room in my senior year schedule so that I'm only taking 12 units and I'm taking some classes for fun because I want to. And that was not something that was super stressful for me. You have to stay on track. The flowchart is going to be your roadmap to graduating. That you need to follow that. And I did, and it worked out just fine. I would not stress if you aren't able to stay more than 4 years. There are easy ways to follow the roadmap, and you will get classes that you need to continue on that path. If you want to take 5, even better. You're going to have a very relaxed schedule. Some of my schedules were definitely more intense and very time consuming. And you can take classes online at community college over the summer. I did multiple GEs that way. It was a really great way to knock out some classes while I was interning so that my schedule wasn't that booked. But just know that it's doable, and there's a ton of ways that are inexpensive that you can do that. Even if you're an out-of-state student like myself, I am a Washingtonian, so it wasn't always feasible for me to take all my classes in-state. And so sometimes over the summer, I'd take Washington Community College classes to kind of decrease my financial burden. So it's definitely possible, but make sure you follow that flow chart. And if you have AP classes, even better.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I think I'm going to have to end our panel portion and say a huge thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate you sharing your insights. We have a series of questions, some of them still open. So post this event, we will work on answering those questions and sharing that in an email to the attendees. So switching to our next slide, a few quick announcements. I know one of the questions we had was around scholarships. I'd highly encourage you to go to the Society of Women Engineers. It's just SWE.org, and you can find scholarships there nationally. They offer a lot of funding, as well as Cal Poly San Luis Obispo specific. SWE scholarships are funded by our local professionals section of SWE, so look for details of that coming out in May. And then a couple, upcoming calendar events. Please Remember, May 1st is the deadline to submit your intent to enroll, and you'll need to also send in your transcripts once you finish up and graduate high school. And then look forward to a couple events to help you in your transition to Cal Poly, one over the summer and then one the week before school starts. So with that, in closing, I would just like to, again, congratulate you on this these opportunities you've created for yourself. One thing is I didn't get a chance to say is you have a lot of all good decisions. So do your research and then go with your instinct, and you will be in a place where you can make yourself a really good path forward. So really congratulations to you. And this is going to conclude our webinar, and we're going to switch now to the Zoom meetings, and you will need to hang up on the webinar and then log into the Zoom meeting. If you go into the chat, you can copy paste the link to get into those Zoom meetings, and people will be there by major. And there will be faculty as well as students in those spaces. So feel free to jump into any space or into multiple spaces. Those will be open for about the next hour, depending on how many students are interested in how many questions are being asked. I think that's it. Again, thank you for joining us. Congratulations and good luck with your college education. Bye-bye.